Hi, this is Beth from Around the Table Yarns, and tonight is the first session of our sweater club for the second half of 2025. Tonight we are going to be starting the baseline cardigan by Susanne Sommers. So I'm really excited to be doing this. This is our second of our unusual construction patterns, and I think it's going to be a lot more straightforward and simple than people thought. I'm going to pause the recording for a second and I'm going to pull up the pattern on my computer. Okay, I've got my pattern up. I just want to share the Can you are you seeing the screen with the cardigan pattern on it?
No, I'm seeing your email.
Oh, well, we don't want
Oh,
that.
wait a minute. There it is.
Okay.
Bring it up. There we go.
See it now? Okay.
Yep.
All right, so this is just the first page of the pattern, and I wanted to go over a little bit of information from this first page. And I don't think that this general information gives away too much of the pattern, but this is a for purchase pattern from Ravelry. It is €7, which is about $8, I think. It calls for, so just to know that this project, this is the project we're working on. Can you see the photo?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so this is the project we're working on, and it is constructed from the fronts out towards the edge of the neckline and then down the sleeves. And the shaping that happens is happening at the edge of the collar initially, and then down the center of the piece when you join the two sides together. So all of the decreases are happening down this center seam. It's not really a seam, it's just where the center of the pieces are.
Mm-hmm.
And the um, the options that you have for this project are to do it in a solid color. So here's a version of it done in a solid with a little bit of contrast at the edges of the pockets and the cuffs. And then she also shows it in a color blocked version. And the color blocked version has a different trim and then a different color for the left front, the right front, and the left back and the right back. So there's just three colors used here, and it's roughly half of the sweater is the fronts and the sleeve on each side, and then a little bit for the trim around. So going back to the pattern, the first thing you get to decide is whether or not you want to make it in a stripe or a solid or in a color block. Then you get to pick your sizing, and the sizing is done in sort of a generic sizing from the smallest size being size number 1 up to size 8.5. And in the pattern, I'm going to make that much bigger. Oh, this is the sizing that she's talking about here. So size 1 is a finished bust circumference of 35 3/4 going up to a finished bust circumference of 68 3/4. So it's a very, very generous, lots of inclusive sizing here. So going down to very small adult sizes, going up to the larger adult sizes. Now, what comes across in the pattern writing is a little bit different math than I think some of us are used to. And I just want to highlight that that's in this paragraph here, right here. She talks about the bust circumference, the body measurement should be about 10% less than the finished bust of the cardigan, and in parentheses, positive ease. Less ease will result in a tighter fitting garment. So we don't always think about our math for a cardigan that way. And I just want to stop sharing. I'm just going to here. And I just want to talk a little bit about algebra. So our chest measurement, what she's saying is our chest measurement, that's the measurement of our body, in this case, equals the finished circumference minus the chest measurement divided by 10, or 10% of your body measurement. And that is not how we normally think about our math. We normally think about our math a little bit different, but it's just algebra. So the finished circumference, this number, equals the chest measurement plus 10% of the chest measurement, or a tenth of the chest measurement. In other words, if my chest measurement is 38, then I add 3.8 inches and my finished circumference is 41.8. And the other way to look at that would be if my chest measurement was 38, that equals 41.8 minus 3.8. But this is the number you know, or the number that you can find by doing a measurement. And this is the measurement that we want to look for on our chart. So I just wanted to point that out because it is a little bit backwards from how I normally think of our measurements. So I'm going to go back to my share screen. Okay, so it's just that little piece of information. So she gives you in this row the finished measurement in centimeters or inches, and then talks about what the recommended ease, what you would subtract to get your actual bust measurement. So that's where we're going to start. To get your actual bust measurement, I want you to consider, and I'm going to sit up a little bit so you can see me better. I want you to consider measuring in your armpit around your body as close as possible to your armpit. So not the measurement that goes across the widest part of your bust, but the measurement that goes around my dog is ripping up my labels. I want you to take an upper chest measurement. And the reason why we want to do this measurement instead of this measurement is this measurement reflects more closely your skeletal size. So your shoulders are what this needs to hang on and fit to start with. And so we want to make sure that we fit your shoulders well. And then adding 10%, if your bust measurement is much bigger than that, then you may want to go up another size. But if you can fit the sweater on by adding 10% to this measurement, then that's the actual measurement that you want to use. So for me, this is a 38-inch measurement. And with 10% of ease, that's very comfortable for me. So let's go back to the chart, just using that as an example. So I'm 30, this measurement on me is 38, where the letter A is here. And so I am actually, so it would be a little bit on the smaller side if I chose the 40.5 inches. I'm going to choose the 43 inches based on my actual measurement. So I don't want to do one that fits me snugly. I don't want to do 38.25. I want to have a little bit of ease for it to fit well. So that's one way to approach this. The other way to approach this is to lay out a sweater that fits you the way you want this one to fit you, and measure across this measurement at the underarms. So across from armpit to armpit, multiply by 2, and then which one of these is that closest to. So a quick and dirty way to do it is to take a sweater, whether it is a hand knit sweater or a manufactured sweater, measure from armpit to armpit times 2, and then look at this line of numbers and pick the one that is the closest to it here. And that should get you something that fits similarly to the sweater you already own. If you have larger arms, you might want to check your sleeve circumferences, but I think this is more information that if you're going to do any customizing of the size. But it doesn't really make a difference in which overall size we're going to do what the upper sleeve circumference is, because you can always choose if you need a larger size here, you can always choose not to do quite as many decreases. So along the line of the top of the shoulder and into the sleeve, if you needed more room here, you would just not decrease quite as much in that area. So you will be able to do a little bit of customization. Um, the second size, so the chest, around the chest is the first size that we have to think about. And then the second measurement that we have to think about is the length overall. And can you all see my mouse moving? Okay, so where the A measurement is here, from here up, all of the sweater sizing is the same for everybody, for every size, for every length. But what changes is the length, the measurement L. And if you do length A, so here are all the different lengths in inches. If you choose length A, then from here to here, from the letter H down to the bottom, that length is 17.5 inches. If you do B, it's 19.5. If you do C, it's 21.5. So again, I would say take a sweater or a top that fits you the way you want this to fit and check that measurement. And then, sorry, this is at center back. This is not the full measurement. It is the measurement from the armhole down. It is from here down. So you want to know what, if you want to know what measurement, I'm sorry, I said that wrong. If you want to know, if you take a measurement from the back of the collar to the bottom, or from your shoulder to the bottom of the sweater of one that you already have, you want to compare that actually to this chart, which gives you the full length of the sweater. Oh, and those are the same numbers. I am not wrong. Hello, I'm not wrong. These numbers here are the length from the underarm. So those are the numbers that are a little bit shorter. So these numbers here are the length from the center of the neck to the hem down the center back. And you can see for the length A that that means that this part is only 12 inches long. And for the longer length, it's 26 inches. So this part of the sweater, the upper part of the sweater to the armholes, is the same. This measurement will be the same for each size. And then you'll have the choice of how long you want to make it. But this involves your cast on. So you need to pay attention to that because it involves your cast on. Was that clear? Okay. I'm getting a nod, so I'm hoping that that's clear to everybody who's watching this later who doesn't have a chance to ask me a question. But she has lots of numbers here. It's a full page of numbers on this page and the next one. And that seems really, really daunting. And I just want to point out that this gives you all of the chest circumferences from size 1 to size 8.5. So only one of these columns relates to you. And then depending on the length that you do, so you're looking for the size you've chosen. So remember, I decided I was going to do 2.5. So I'm in this column. I'm not looking at anything at the bottom of the page. And then I'm actually doing the cropped version. So these are the numbers here that I'm looking at. These meters or these yards. So my total yardage for this is 1,049. And if I'm doing the striped version, I'm splitting that up with a main color and an alternate color. If you're doing a striped version and you're using a third color for the trim, I would take that extra skein here and use it for the trim, and I would get equal amounts of the colors, or get one more of the main color to be on the safe side. But I think you pretty much use the colors equally. So that's how to find your yardage, and that's the part of the sweater that we're deciding on. So we're deciding on the circumference around and the length, and then the third thing we're deciding on is the neckline. So let me just sweep up to the neckline page here. The crew neck neckline is close fitting to your neck. The round neckline is deeper and not as close fitting around the neck. And then the V neckline is much deeper and comes out to about the same place as the round neckline. The backs only go down a little bit, so the fronts are the ones that are mostly indented or mostly affected with the shaping. So those are the three choices that everybody has. I've chosen to do the close-fitting crew neck. The crew neck, the round neck, and the V-neck do not change the calculations for how much yardage you need. Obviously, you'll use less for the V-neck than you will use for the crew neck, but that is not put into the yardage calculation. So you may have a little bit more left over if you choose to do the V-neck. And then they give you here the width without a neckband on of the crew neck, the round neck, and the V-neck. So you can see again, the round neck and the V-neck are about the same size across. The crew neck is more closely fitted. And then the front neck drop. So that's the drop down from the bottom of your neck compared to the back of your neck. And you can see that it's the least for the crew neck, and then the middle amount for the round neck, and the most for the V-neck. So that's a little bit of background on the sizing. The pattern suggests a gauge. Let's see if the gauge is up here. Yep. So the pattern has a gauge here of 20 stitches and 38 rows in garter stitch to 4 inches. And that's done on the main needle size. So we're shooting for 5 stitches to the inch, and with 38 rows, that's in garter stitch, that is 19 ridges, would be 4 inches. And she suggests measuring that after blocking, and that gauge will have a definite influence on your finished garment. So it is really important that you do check your gauge before you get started. For the yarn that she's recommending, or for the yarn weight that she's recommended, which is 200 to 250 meters, or 220 to 273 yards per 100 gram. So that's what is called a DK weight yarn. For that weight, she is suggesting using the size 7, US size 7, or the 4.5 millimeter, or the US size 6 or 4 millimeter needles. So the difference between these, usually in ribbing, you might use a needle that is 2 sizes smaller, but this ribbing is, I don't think she wants it to pull in as much because it is a split hem at the bottom of the sweater. So if I go to the picture here, you can just sort of see that this is a split hem. The front hem is significantly shorter than the back hem, and they're not joined in the round at the edges. So there's a little bit of, you can see a little bit of a notch there. And so if you use a much smaller needle for the ribbing, it will actually pull in. Now I'm going to reveal that I have done my swatch, and I did my ribbing on my swatch with the needles as called for, and mine pulled in pretty significantly, and I have a fix for this for our for when we do our ribbing at the bottom of the sweater.
Mine pulled in too, Beth.
Okay, well, I've already figured it out and fixed
Excellent.
it. So you don't have to worry about it. I
Mhm.
am here for you because I don't want it to pull in. And here is,
I thought it was me.
nope, not you. Here is here is my original swatch that I did. Go away. And you can see the top of it is very pulled in. Like it's really swooping in.
Mhm.
And I don't like that. So this will get sewn and it will lay flat, but it is getting stretched a little bit to do that. And I don't love this. I just don't love this very much. I also didn't love how much darker my trim color was. So I changed my trim color to this green. And do you see how this is laying much flatter?
Yes.
So what I did, you start on the purl side. So you purl two and then you knit two. And what I ended up doing was bloop, bloop. So you can try this on your pocket and see if you like it. Let's see if we can read this. All right. When you change to the trim color, you do one right side row and you knit one row. So you change to your trim color, you change to the smaller needles, and on the right side row, you knit all the stitches. So change to your trim color, knit one row. And that way, when you do the pearls, you won't see two colors in the pearls. So it makes a nice transition. And then when you do your wrong side, they just have you do purl two, knit two across. And what I'm going to have you do is increase one stitch for every 6 stitches across the block. So you'll purl two, and then this is the repeat. Knit one, knit front and back, purl one, knit two, purl two. Knit one, knit front and back, purl one, knit two, purl two. That will make something that looks like the ribbing, the knit two, purl two ribbing. So the knit one and the knit front and back, the knit front looks like a knit one and the knit back looks like a purl one. And so this adds one stitch, and that's just enough to have this lay flat. So it's, a sixth more stitches and it lays flatter across the top of the pocket. I also didn't love how long the trim on the pocket was. And so for my sample, I shortened it. And you can see this is where, so you actually end up adding one right at the end even, but it just adds just enough that it's not pulling in significantly. And I think that will make a big difference on the base of the sweater if we continue to use um, that formula or that increase.
So you only do that for the one wrong side row, and then you do the ribbing, the
And
regular.
then you'll begin doing knit two, purl two ribbing.
Okay.
So yeah, you just do it. So it's just like if you were doing a pattern. Often when you do a pattern from the bottom up and you do ribbing, you'll cast on more stitches for the ribbing, work the ribbing, and then in the first row after the ribbing, you decrease evenly across the row.
Okay.
This is just an increase evenly across the row to make the ribbing lay flat.
Okay.
It's just a reverse of that idea. Okay. So you've picked your body size, you've picked your length, and you've picked your collar choice, whether it's crew neck, round neck, or V-neck. And then you're going to look at that chart and you're going to check your yardage. And for that whole page, you only need one little box. So I thought that this was very daunting when I first saw these pages, and then I looked at it and I was like, oh, this is the only piece of information I really need from this whole page, from the entire page. I just need that much information. So this is just a piece of reference material for everybody. And then she goes on, just double check where I am. I want to be careful not to put up things on the video that are proprietary information. So then she goes on and she talks about, in the pattern, she talks about choosing your yarn color and choosing the right amount of it. And she really encourages everybody to play with their yarn colors. So, as you can see, I've chosen a little bit of optical mixing here. This yellow and this pink are very close in value. And from a distance, if you look at them from further away, they're going to kind of blend together. And then I wanted to have a green trim. I wanted to do something that felt kind of 70s vibe. I think my daughter thinks I'm trying to get my Sesame Street back on, but there's something a little bit Sesame Streety about this. But I think this color is one, it's a tweedy, and so it's got a little bit of orange and a little bit of yellow in it. So I think it's going to play nicely with my overall striping. So I hope you're really happy with your color choices and that you're enjoying doing it. Here is my swatch. So on page 20 of the pattern, she gives the instructions for an optional patch pocket, and she suggests that you do the optional patch pocket as your swatch. So the instructions essentially tell you to cast on the number of stitches, I believe it's 26, and then to work in your, if you're doing striping, to work in your striping pattern, if you're doing solid, to work in the solid, and then to continue with the ribbing. And so then she has you finish this by blocking it thoroughly. So I got it thoroughly wet. I pressed out as much of the fabric, the moisture as possible, and I laid it flat to dry. I used a room that has a ceiling fan, so it dried really quickly. And then I wanted to check my measurements. So measuring across my work, this is just about 5¼ inches wide. So when I do my math, I have 26 stitches and I'm dividing that by 5.25 and it comes out to 4.95. So I'm not exactly at 5 stitches to the inch. My stitches are a little bit bigger. So it's 1/4 inch off for 4 inches. So my project will be a little bit longer and I'm okay with that. Then checking my stitch height. This is exactly 4 inches and I have 19 ridges. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 19. That's 38 rows and my 38 rows are 4 inches. So I've gotten gauge. I think it's okay if you don't get gauge and you're happy with the tension of your fabric. But if you haven't done something like this or you don't feel really confident, I would suggest working with the needle sizes to get gauge or to get as close to gauge as possible. So if you're not comfortable doing a little bit of math, I would suggest that you continue playing with your needle sizes to either go up or down to get the right gauge. So if this had come out and it was much wider than 5 inches, I would want to go down a needle size to make smaller stitches. And if it was much narrower than 5 inches, I would want to go up a needle size or two to make it come out to the right size. But for me, the size 7 turned out to be just about perfect. And certainly the row height is spot on, and that's going to make a big difference in the way that my sweater fits. Any questions about gauge? Okay. So having done my swatch, having checked my gauge, we're ready to cast on. And the pattern starts in the middle of the front. So I'm just going to draw a little picture here. Here we can look at the sweater. Here's our sweater. So we have this sweater. It looks like this. Look at me drawing pictures. Doot, doot, doot. Okay. Oh, can we see it? Yeah. So the front of my sweater is a little bit lower than the back. The round neck sweater would be even rounder, and then the V-neck would be the same width and even deeper. So you start with the right front of the sweater. In other words, if I were wearing this, if I were facing forward, this would be my right-hand side here. So this is the section of the sweater that we're going to start with. And our knitting direction is from the center out. So we're going to cast on this edge and work in this direction. Okay. So if you're doing the crew neck, it's the longest one. If you're doing the round neck, it's the next longest one. And if you're doing the V-neck, it's the shortest one. So on page, I'm not going to show this because this begins to be the proprietary information of the pattern. So I'm just drawing my little picture here, but on page 6 of the pattern, it has this information, how many stitches to cast on for the length that you're doing, because this information here is based on what your length overall is going to be. And so you don't need, it doesn't matter which circumference you're doing it around, this information is only based on the length of your garment. So remember which length you're doing, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, or H, and then which neckline you're doing, and that's the number that you're going to cast on. So I'm casting on for the shortest length for the crew neck. So that's my number. That's how many stitches I'm casting on. She suggests a provisional cast on done by crocheting on. So I wanted to demonstrate that. So Martha was in the store today and Martha gave me great advice on doing a crocheted cast on. A crocheted cast on uses a crochet hook, and I'm going to make a slip stitch and put it on my crochet hook. And then I'm going to do a short chain of 4 stitches. Could be a few more, depends on how big your stitches are, but I just want about 1 inch of chain to hold onto. So I've just chained 4, or about 1 inch long. I'm just using a double pointed needle right now for the sake of demonstrating under my camera, but you're going to hold the crochet hook and the needle. So this could be the tip of your circular needle, and this is your main needle, not the smaller needle of the two. So this would be the size 7 if you're using the size 7. And I'm holding them parallel. The stitch is attached. There's a slip stitch or a chain attached to the crochet hook. There's nothing attached to the knitting needle. And I take the yarn for my provisional cast on. I'm using a mercerized cotton. I would recommend a smooth yarn that doesn't have a lot of fuzz to it, and a mercerized cotton is a very nice one for that because it doesn't have a lot of extra fuzz. But I'm going to take that yarn and I'm going to wrap it around both the knitting needle and the crochet hook, and then I'm going to use the crochet hook to make a stitch here. So that becomes my stitch, and then I wrap it around again, and that becomes my second stitch. And I do this until I have the number that I want. So I continue adding stitches on by wrapping it around both needle and hook, and then pulling the hook, the yarn over through the loop on the hook. It makes a really nice edge. This is also not a bad way to cast on a sweater if you're more comfortable crocheting than knitting. When you get to the number that you need, then Martha's second suggestion that I thought was brilliant was to continue with a little bit of a chain So again, you have something to hold on to. And then I pull out a loop and I do a little bit of a knot at the end, like that. And that's how I know this is the side when I untie it that is going to unravel, because the beauty of doing a crocheted chain start is once I untie this, a provisional cast on with a crocheted chain, once I untie this, it just comes apart and disappears, and you'll be left with the loops of the stitches. And so we'll get to that when we are joining, when we're starting the left front, but this is a nice way to do a provisional cast on. So I just want to show you the first piece that you do is your right front. So the right front again is here. It's just this little bit of knitting. Get that to come into focus. So it's this part of the sweater that we've cast on. So here is my right front. If you're doing the crew neck, it's the least amount of knitting. If you're doing the V-neck or the round neck, it's more knitting. So here's my provisional cast on, and here's my piece of knitting. So it's pretty straightforward. So let's talk a little bit about some of the shaping that is going on in this. I want to just cover a couple of techniques while we're at it. On page 5, most of the shaping in this is done, the increases and decreases are done in very straightforward ways. So in the list of abbreviations, there's very little that's going to be a surprise to anybody, but there's make one left and make one right and make one purlwise. And there's also a right lifted increase. So I just wanted to quickly demonstrate those to make sure that people are comfortable doing them. I need the one that's attached to the yarn. So here we go. When you're working these squares, you're going to be doing an edge that looks like this. And this is done by slipping the last stitch with the yarn in front at the end of every row. So I've done that. I've slipped the last stitch with the yarn in front at the end of this row. So I worked to here, and then I slipped this stitch with the yarn held to the front of the work. Then I turned it around. I'm going to put my needle in and pick up and knit the first stitch, and then I'm going to knit the second stitch. And here's where you might be, if this were the beginning of the right side row of the right front, this is where you might be doing an increase. And so you would have done the first 2 stitches, and then you would do an increase by doing a knit in the front and the back. So a knit in the front and the back, you go into the stitch normally, wrap and come through, but you do not take the old stitch off of the left needle. You take the point of your right needle into the rear leg of that stitch and work it. So there's your knit front and back. And you can see why I think it looks a little bit like a knit and a purl, because the top of the stitch from the row before looks almost like a purl bump at the bottom of that. So that's the KFB abbreviation in the instructions. I'm going to take that out. The second abbreviation in the instructions that comes up later in the pattern is a KYOK. And that is a 2-stitch increase. So I just wanted to demonstrate that. In this case, you go into the stitch knitwise, just like for the knit front and back. You do not take the old stitch off. The yarn is in back because you've knitted. You're going to bring it to the front between the needles as though you were going to purl, and then just lay it over the right needle. That's your yarn over. and then take the left needle back into the front leg, wrap and come through. When you finish that, you'll have 1, 2, 3 stitches coming out of one. It makes the bottom open up a little bit more, so it's a way of creating 3 stitches out of one. And again, the abbreviation for this is KYOK, and it's a 2-stitch increase. Let's just review the make one left and right. Those 2 increases are done in a stitch. So when you do a knit front and back, you do it in a stitch. If you do a KYOK, you do it in a stitch. When you do a make one left or a make one right, you do it between a stitch. So you've worked a stitch and you're going to work the next stitch, but you're going to use the strand between them and you're going to twist it either. So you're going to twist that strand either to the right like that so that the top strand is leaning to the right, or you're going to twist it to the left. So the way that you can do that, very straightforwardly, I always start with my left needle going either in from the back or the front of the strand between the 2 stitches. So when I'm going to make one right, I think be right back, and I take my left needle and I come from the back, and then I take my right needle and I want to knit into this strand, but sometimes I find that kind of hard to do. So I often will use my right needle and pull it forward, put my finger behind it so I have some slack, and then I get into it much more easily. And then you have that right leaning make one right. So again, that's you come from the back and you knit into the front. Be right back. To make one left, I go into the front of the stitch with my left needle and then I knit into the back of it. And there you can see that the strand leans to the left, and that's a left leaning increase. Make one purlwise, it doesn't matter so much if you go to the left or the right. So if you prefer, I prefer to go in from the front and work into the back, but this time you're going to bring your working yarn forward, and when you go into that back loop, you're going to go into it purlwise. So make one purlwise. It doesn't matter so much if it's left or right leaning because it's a purl stitch. So it doesn't show up as much, but you can decide to do a make one left or right when you're doing the make one purlwise. They're having you do it back to front. I take it all back. So in the pattern, she has you do it back to front. So you go into the back and then bring the yarn forward, and then you're going to purl into that front loop. That's pretty straightforward. And then that makes it look like that. So there you go. Make one purlwise, it's from back to front. So it's just like make one right. And then the last one that she has, I'm just going to continue on my happy little way here. The next one that she has is a right lifted increase. So in the right lifted increase, you're going to insert the right hand needle into the stitch, 1 row below the next stitch here. So that's the purl bump here. So I'm going to put my right needle into this purl bump and knit it. So you could just go ahead and knit it if you're comfortable doing that. But if you're not comfortable doing that, lift it up so that the right leg is forward and then knit into it normally. And that kind of an increase has a little bit less of a hole. So you can see this is my make one purlwise. It's got a little bit of an extra hole underneath because you've pulled up that strand between the stitches. When you do a make one or lifted increase, there's less of a hole beneath it. So those are all the special increases on this pattern that you should be aware of. So I just wanted to make sure I covered that before y'all got crazy. Because you have a little homework to do. Oop. So the pattern has you start again with the right front, and what I want to point out is that if you are knitting in this direction, I want it to focus. 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 All right. If you're knitting in this direction on your piece and the right side is facing you, the beginning of your row is where the shaping happens. And for all of the different ones, the round, the crew, and the V, all of that shaping is increases on the neck edge. So the starting edge of the right side is the edge where your increases are going to happen. And depending on which neckline you're doing, they're going to happen in, like for the V-neck, they happen immediately. For the round neck and the crew neck, you have to do a few rows of garter first. So there's a little flat beginning to it, which I can show you. Not all cramped. So here's the beginning of my neck edge, and I worked five ridges before there's any increasing, and then the increasing happens at the edge. This nice edge is from slipping the stitch with the yarn in front when I come to the end of each row. When we pick up our stitches to do our ribbed edging, these will disappear. So if you forget to do it, it's not a big deal. If you remember to do it, it does make a nice stretchy edge, and it's a very pretty edge. So you could maybe omit doing edging if you wanted to, if you use this slip stitch technique. The bottom edge has no shaping at all. It should be straight across the bottom edge completely. So when you do your first one, you'll cast on the stitches that you need. Oop, hello. You'll cast on all the stitches that you need. You're working with this. This is the right side. So the side where the garter ridges are one color is the right side of the fabric. The wrong side of the fabric, each garter ridge is two colors. I think that's a fun side of the fabric too, but we're going to use the garter ridge side as written in the pattern. So this is my full beginning here. Remember that there will be an edging, so I don't need to, it doesn't need to go all the way to the middle of my neck. So it does seem a little bit short for the crew neck, but the crew neck is also the closest fitting. The second piece is going in the opposite direction. The second piece is the back of the sweater. So here's the back of my sweater. And now you're going to be doing this part of the sweater. So if my head were on here and I was facing the desk, it would be my right side. So when you're looking at the back of the sweater, the right side is the right side. So the right side is the left side when you're looking at the front of the sweater, but the right side is the back when you're looking at the back of the sweater. So we're going to be doing this piece here. There is shaping, but it starts off for all of the different ones. It starts off the same, and then there's shaping at the end in slightly different ways, depending on whether you're doing the crew neck, the round neck, or the V-neck. So these two pieces are done separately. The analogy to that, it's like doing a split hem. You would do the front part of the hem and the back part of the hem, and then you would join them together in the round to continue going up on a piece that's done in the round. In this case, we're doing the front part of the sweater. I turn that off. Is that helpful? Okay, I turned a little bit of the light down so we could see these drawings a little bit better. I was hoping. So we're going to be joining at the shoulder, the front piece and the back piece. And that's section 3 of the pattern. The section 1, you do the front along the neck with shaping at the top and no shaping at the bottom. Section 2, you can see this is the wrong side. So this is the middle of my right back. And this is the middle of my right front. So they're going to be joined here. Like that. So on my next row, which will be a pink row, I'm going to work from the bottom of my back, which is the beginning of the right side of my back, across this join and all the way to the bottom of my front. And now the shaping will be done in the center of the work instead of at the edges here. So those are the 3 pieces that I'm hoping everybody can get to before the next meeting. The next,
Okay, you lost me.
what, oh, how did I lose you?
Okay, you said they're gonna be like the right front and the right back will be connected together.
Yes. So here's my right front, right?
Mm-hmm.
And here's my right back. That'll be behind me.
Okay.
And then where they're going to join is, so there's a neckline in between,
Mm-hmm.
and they're going to be joined. So my yarn is here at the bottom of my right back. I'm going to work across with the right sides out. I'm going to work a right side row
Oh,
all the way across,
to the sleeve.
all the way across. So it'll go up the back at the shoulder. It will join to the other piece and it will come down the front.
Got it. That is a different construction.
Isn't
I
that
went,
neat?
yeah.
So then the shaping, so if you look at all of the diagrams, there is a slope on the shoulder. So if it's coming from here, if it's coming from close to your neck or from the round neck or from the V-neck, there's going to, before you get to the point of the sleeve, before we get to where we're going to put the sleeves on, there's going to be a little bit of shaping down.
Okay.
It's really cool.
Got it.
So that's the point I want to get us to. And so next time when we're together on August 18th, we're going to join the 2 sides and work on the sleeves. Because this pattern is done in garter stitch, I want to do the sleeves flat so that we are not changing our stitch. We're not going from all knit to knitting and purling by doing garter stitch in the round. So I want us to continue working flat on the I did start the recording again. Okay, sorry. Just had a moment of like, did I start the recording? Oh. So I want us to work flat. So there will be decreases, and the decreases in the pattern are the basic ones, purl 2 together, and also I believe a knit 2 together and an SSK. So I think everybody's good with those.
Is that going to be then similar to how we did the petunia arms then? And do like a 3 needle bind
There's
off?
going to be a 3 needle bind off here.
Okay.
And then when we get done with this, there will be a garter stitch seam
Okay.
the bottom of the sleeve. That's the only seam will be at the bottom of the sleeve. And the only reason we could do it in the round, if you want to do it in the round,
No.
I won't yell at you. But the reason I want to do it back and forth is because your gauge can change.
Right.
You're purling and knitting. So I want to
I'm good. No, I'm good with that. But I was just thinking about we did arms similar. So I'm like, oh, okay. I recognize that.
yeah. So I think it's a really, really cool. So this time the stripes are going across the
Right.
sleeves instead of down the sleeves
Hmm.
because
Right.
it's not a circular yoke like the petunia sweater was.
Right.
So here's the thing. Once we've done that, we already know how to do the decreases down the arm. So then it's just picking up the edging and you just repeat on the other side. I don't think this is going to take us 6 months.
Hmm.
So let's try to get through section 3
Okay.
because it's not a lot of knitting. That part, it won't be a lot of knitting. And then we'll see how much further we can get to. If you get all of this done, put it all on the holder and do and pick up and do the other side if you want to,
Hmm.
because why not?
Right. Well, the petunia went fast after you figured out what was going on. You just
Yeah,
committed to the so many rows
yeah.
at a time.
In some ways, these unusual constructions make for a really they're not an intuitive knit. Kim has made how many sweaters? And she was like, "How do you put this together?" It's not intuitive. It doesn't
Hmm.
like roll right off the tongue. But once you start, it's a really quick knit.
Hmm.
There's a lot less construction seaming. Um, I think it's going to be really interesting. And then there is a center sort of line of stitches, and I think that that will act like a seam to help give some structure to the shoulder and to the top
Hmm.
of the sleeve, and it's going to help hang, how the sweater hangs off of the body. I'm really excited about this. So, please
Hmm.
contact the store 216-230-9224 if you have any questions about it. I'm Beth. I will be around. And this video will be available on our YouTube and through our website. So please watch as many times as you need. Hopefully, we've put lots of information into this video. If there's something that we're missing, please let me know. Thank you. Any other questions?
How many yards is in your Woolwise?
Woolwise has 220 yards per skein of 100 grams. So
Okay.
it's right at the heavier edge of their DK weight.
Hmm.
And mine is just a squinch bigger than 5 stitches to the inch.
Okay.
Which I'm okay because I'm choosing the shortest size. But if you're getting a little bit more, if you're using something that you're getting a little bit bigger, you might choose a shorter size.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So August 20,
Okay.
August 18th is the next session. We'll be on at 6 o'clock Eastern Time live, or you can catch us on the video. Thanks.